After World War II, the development of social security system and new kind of welfare institutions, these were institutions that will benefit, if you want, all the poor or all the disadvantaged social classes, whatever their ethnic origin or religious origin. And I think today we need to find some new horizon, some new right to equal education, some new forms of fiscal or social justice objective. But if our only objective is to have more market competition between countries, between territories, between social groups, this in itself will not create solidarity between people, but quite the opposite. This will tend to exacerbate this big tension which some politicians tend to exploit. We should remember, in particular, the case of the US and the Trump election, I think, is particularly revealing, because in US history, it's only during a relatively exceptional period of time, say between 1930 and 1980, what was sometimes called the Roosevelt coalition, that the poor white and the poor black were voting for the same party, the Democratic Party. But during most of US history, they were actually divided. So today they are divided. Some of the poor white vote Trump, poor black and Latino vote Democrat. And in the 19th century, it was a little bit the same, but in the opposite direction. So the Republican Party was against slavery, but he was more favoring the more well-off segment of the white population. So today, it's as if we are back to this kind of structure of political conflict, but with the Democratic Party instead of the Republican a century ago, and vice versa. So it's as if in a country like the US, where the racial tension is very extreme, because there's been very little intermarriage between the ex-slave population, the black population, and the white population. So it is very different from what you can see in Brazil or the part of the world. So when you have this very extreme racial segregation, there's always a risk that the political conflict will return to a more racial base than a class based and social based. And so I am concerned that in Europe, which today have a bigger share of migrant population and population with diverse ethnic religious origins than it was the case in the past, that we go through the same kind of perverse dynamic. So again, the solution to me is certainly not to close frontiers but rather to develop a new approach to globalization, which gives a strong role to fiscal justice, social justice, environmental justice, and that does not start from the assumption that more market integration, more market competition is enough to make societies stable and sustainable.